So today we are going to hopefully come to the conclusion of what we have been discussing in the last 2 days. We were analyzing the process of death, because death itself is the process of life. And we have seen the different stages through which death comes into our life. What we said was the incapacity of the individual, and because of this incapacity there is this urge to grow towards perfection. But the perfection that we envisage has been different through the ages, because religions have presented the perfection in one manner, some philosophies in another manner. But whatever the sense, it has never been the kind of integral perfection that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother speak of. So otherwise, till now, there have been attempts of the mental, the physical, the vital, etc., but not the integral perfection. So, we have now come to a stage in evolution where Sri Aurobindo would tell us that whatever the incapacity we are born with, we have to move toward this perfection. And that is the, what we say, the physical, vital, mental, spiritual perfection. And then we also discussed about the question of, you remember the third reason that Sri Aurobindo gave us? What was that? We can polish your memories. Pardon? Yeah, the infinite experience on a finite basis. And that is in fact the spiritual answer, that in a single body we cannot have this kind of a fullness of experience. And Gayatri, you had asked me the question about this multiple expressions and people wanting to do many things, and that is pulling you towards some kind of attention and all that. But that is not the thing. Actually, not everybody can do that. In fact, there is a kind of an experience where every soul comes for a particular experience, 1, 2, plus, minus. But in one of the letters, Sri Aurobindo mentions that a soul which is mature in the sense it has had many experiences in the past births, many not numerically. Numerically, we may have all great experiences, and we have gone through hundreds of lives, surely. But there are certain births in which we have achieved some kind of a crystallization of that experience. That means, say, you are an artist. you have really discovered something new, not just a new form, but you have been such a deep, innate, involved artist that this sense of aesthetics and beauty has become part of your soul. It's a kind of a layer that has been added to the soul's experience. Because most of us, we do not add this layer. I may have some experience being an artist or a philosopher or a musician or an engineer, but I'm not that involved. It's good enough for my giving me my bread and butter. So that will not be a fulfillment of the soul's experience. It's more or less an experience en passant, as we say. So there are certain experiences which become layers of the soul's growth. And these layers are the enrichment of the soul. So all of us who take birth do not necessarily fulfill the soul's experience. So he would tell us that sometimes when the soul comes back, it draws upon its multiple layers and tries to bring them into the present life. And this he did give an example in the case of Leonardo da Vinci. He is a perfect example of this multiple layers. He was a perfect artist, a perfect musician, a perfect architect, a perfect sculptor, a perfect, which were at the zenith of their expression. He was not an artist just going around. He was not an architect learning to do the architecture. He had given expression to he was a scientist. He was a doctor. But all par excellence, all at the acme. So which tells us that he had already conquered these things in his past births. And these are the aspects that come back. So we cannot say, is it my ambition? No, it is my soul's necessity to express itself. And there, a multiple aspects, they come forward. So we cannot say, hey, you're doing too many things, don't do that, you just stick to one simple thing and then you'll be happy. No. It's my soul's necessity to really bring out so many aspects. So that's one thing that I wanted to tell you. And there was another question, I think, regarding somebody said about the desire. Yeah. Yes, we discussed about the moment we said desire, we all said no desire. But we said no. Desire has its own evolutionary necessity. Because desire itself is an expression of the innate delight. But just as delight expresses itself on the physical level as hunger, so we said on the vital level it expresses itself as desire. Desire, the very basic thing is you want to grow. But basically what's happening, what is the essential feature of desire, if you can understand that? You see, the essential feature of desire is where it is looking or it's wanting to unite with something outside of it, which it thinks is necessary for its happiness. So all our desires to own this rose or own this object or own this thing or the house or a car, because I think because what did we say yesterday? Our fundamental right is to seek delight. I mean, that nobody can snatch away from us. So we are at every point, at every moment, through every act, we are seeking delight. And so what I think is, I can get my delight by getting that object, by uniting with that person, by having that connection, by having this relation. So all the time I'm looking for something to unite with, possess, so that I get delight. So desire is not something wrong, but it is there as a feature of wanting to get the delight. But then, why is it that Gita tells you about not to have delight? The great Buddha told you that the essence of the whole problems of manifestation. You see, what happens, this incapacity, what we said, is the innate nature of the human being. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to get out of this incapacity. We want to progress. We want to enlarge ourselves. We want to aggrandize ourselves. We want to go towards that innate oneness. You may understand it psychologically, philosophically, or you may not even know, but that is the essential truth of life. So in that, where do you place desire? You see, desire, we said, is something that aggrandizes, that adds, supposedly brings me greater joy and happiness. But psychologically, if you look at desire, if we analyze desire, you see, when you I think there's a mother who says, or not, Buddha who says, that when you fulfill a desire, or when you stop a desire, there's a greater joy in controlling or stopping or cessation of desire than in fulfilling it. Why do they say that? You see, it's basically what's happening. There is an urge to expand. Okay, fine, I'm desiring that thing. But when you have fulfilled a desire, does it stop there? No. It wants to repeat itself. Then it wants more, quantity more. And what's happening, this quantity, greater quantity, repetition of the same act, the same thing and the same event, what is happening is it's taking us away from our own inner being. We are depending more and more on the outer things. Like all your TV ads, what are they? They really advertise so many things and all that, only to bring you out. See, all the time, all the supermarkets and all the advertisement, what are they doing? They are bringing you more and more away from your inner being. So from that point of view, desire is detrimental. You see, from the point of view of wanting to grow is fine. But a thing that takes you away, because that is the only criterion that the mother would say, there's nothing good, bad, sin, papam, punyam, nothing. All those things, they're all old morality. In spirituality, there's only one fundamental law. What takes you towards the divine, what takes you away from the divine. One single law of all your action, your thoughts, your feelings, your relationships, everything, single one law. So don't apply morality to me. Hinduism says that, Buddhism says that, all that's your business. Our business is be sincere and analyze, is this act going to take me towards the divine or away from the divine? How do you know away and how do you know towards? Towards is delight. You have a delight in action, in fulfilling that. But Mother gives us one way of testing oneself, if it's desire or not. She says, if I have done that action, okay, it has given me delight now. But supposing there's something that happens and you're not allowed to do that action, or you're not allowed to get that TV or the car, then are you equally in delight of being refused? If you get depressed, dejected, disappointed, you know it was an absolute desire, not helpful and not taking you to the divine. So one parameter, a very simple parameter. Supposing I was stopped, something intervenes and I cannot fulfill. So if your reactions are that of the lower thing, then that is what is taking you away from the divine. So desire has its own place, and yet there's one thing that happens in this vital desire, is exactly what I'm trying to get. I'm doing the opposite thing. That is, I'm trying to expand myself, my consciousness, my aggrandizement, my going towards the oneness. And when a desire is fulfilled, you will see the consciousness shrinking. You don't have the sense of expansion. You know, that's what when we go to Samadhi, when we go to Matri Mandir, when you meditate, You have a feeling there's nothing that is, crunching here, there's nothing binding. You feel that vastness, you feel that spontaneity, you feel nothing is blocking. I mean, why do you say, oh, it was a lovely moment when you went to the forest, when I went to Barsana? It's just something that really flows out spontaneously and it gives you the feeling, one I said is of delight, there's the other feeling of expansion. I mean, it's a very simple thing I saw, as I was telling you yesterday, 20,000 cows at a glance. I mean, those white cows sitting there, gazing in the sunlight, and I took many photographs, but you cannot catch that in the photos. And the little ones, and the older ones, and the young ones. That gives you the sense of beauty, expansion, and you say, wow, what a delight. That somebody called famous Wordsworth, same thing, 10,000 saw at a glance. So that is not a 10,000 or 20,000. It is that feeling of that expansion. But you go and fulfill a desire. See if you have the same feeling. I challenge it is not the same. You have a satisfaction. Wow, I bought my TV home. I got this lovely Sony flat, whatever you call that. But it's so momentary, it doesn't even stay. By the time you come back home and the mechanic comes and fixes the TV, you have the first picture and you say, wow. Third day is gone. You're already looking for the next TV or the next model, the next thing. But this joy of Barsana is still there with me. Yesterday when she showed on that little mobile, the Barsana, the delight that imprinted itself, I could relive it. But I challenge you, can you relive the moment that you bought your first TV? Acha tha, but after that national, I remember when I bought my first national, wow. But after that, it became a tuchha, something ordinary. I went on. But these are things that really stay, and that is what I would say. Those are the impacts that can last. So desire, what we discussed yesterday, is necessary for growth, but as Sri Aurobindo ultimately has the last word, desire of the infinite and not of the finite. So desire is necessary if it is a desire for the infinite. That compassion, that beauty, that glory, and that desire for the infinite. Yesterday, Vibha was reading out to us something from a book where there is a Leela of Radha and Krishna. I mean, that must have been an immortal love, I mean, even now, whenever we read about this love, maybe Gita Govinda or what your book says, we don't have to read too much. Even the very name Radha Krishna, it has become our soul's part. Because that is that eternal divine love. But if it's just Romeo and Juliet, nothing strikes in me. And here Ranja, fine, acha acha kahaniya, you go and see a movie. But why do you say Radha Krishna? It moves you to delight. And the other day, this young girl brought for her birthday a statue of Sri Krishna. And she says, first night I couldn't sleep, I was all the time looking at him. That is our ethos. You look at them, you have such delight. You have Ananda there. And that is that eternal Ananda that has come down to us since Parampara. So these are the experiences where there is a desire for the infinite. We are not giving you a religious thing, we are just giving you a beautiful phrase, delight for the infinite. You call it Krishna Bhakti or Ram Bhakti or Ganesh Bhakti or whatever Bhakti, that's for you. But Sri Aurobindo gives a mantra, desire not for the finite, but for the infinite. So that is why Sri Aurobindo is not religious. He's so purely spiritual. The form of that infinite is for you to find out. And when I went to Barsana, everybody started saying, Radhe, Radhe. Wow, I mean, suddenly something, start flashing up. Because before that, I was more a Krishna Bhakta. Krishna used to have that elation, But suddenly, Radhe, Radhe, the whole atmosphere is full of Radha there. The people consider Radha on a higher level than Krishna. And I could understand, having read a bit of Mother and Shravanto, how there's a Shakti power. So what I want to tell you is, in life, search for that desire of the infinite.
There they say Radhe Radhe Krishna Milade.
Krishna Milade. So
That is the full sentence. Radhe Radhe Krishna
that's the full idea also. But somebody said the desire of English poetry of the moth for the night, for the star. You see, what is the great love? Some nice young fellow poet. He says, love is like a red rose. And he says, it's like a delight of the moth for the star. That is the desire of the infinite. So friends, this is what I wanted to tell you about desire, because we had discussion on that. And I noted some of your points. Yeah, this is one more thing. When I was explaining about this, the mental level, where there is the first will, we said, is the mental. But for the first time, there is the touch of love. And Sri Aurobindo uses the word rudiments of love. You see, not yet love, remember. The very first rudiments of love come on the mental level. So whenever you say you love somebody, it is, you have to analyze, is it that rudiment of love? What is the meaning of rudiment of love? You know, for the first time you have begun to give. Because in the vital and in the physical you are taking, you are possessing, you are grabbing, whatever it may be. So for the first time, he says, you have learned to give. And that is also, as I told you, is a little beginning. Because the giving, as I said, it is not fully giving. There is always, in Bengali they call it a patch. Something twisting, something, you're holding back. That is, you have that bargain. मैं तुम्हें दे रहा हूं तो वापस आपको देना पड़ेगा. So Sri Aurobindo says the worst thing is, they say that I'm giving you this manner, I want to get the same coin back. If I love you in a different way, it's not recognized. That's where the problems come in. And somebody asked the mother, said, mother, what's the most selfless love where there's no demand? So some disciple said, obviously the parents. That is the most selfless love. That's what Indian culture has been saying, but mother throws a bombshell on that. He says, no. Whoever said that the parents are the most selfless love, if you analyze, it's the most selfish love. Because you are expecting the return. बुढ़ापा में काम पे आएगा हमारा, बेटा तो अमेरिका में से मुझे अमेरिका ले जाओ और यू कम टू मी, और बुढ़ापा में यू हैव टू हेल्प मी. Is an unwritten law, unwritten constitutional law. So she says, no, don't be under this illusion that the parents' love is the most selfless. So you see, it is so difficult to love really. It's not so easy. Parents and friends and wife and spouses and all that may have the best for you. But there is always a demand. And you may say, how difficult it is to go beyond this demand. Is it possible? Why shouldn't we expect? No. Have you seen sometimes a bird or an animal? I mean, a few minutes, and yesterday I was watching something on the national TV. I go from here and put on my national geography, That's the best channel. No human emotions involved, no hanky-panky, no dialogue, no conversation. The birds are there, the animals are there, the love is there, the beauty is there. And that's my best relaxation. Because any movie, any channel, anything is all rubbish. And the worst rubbish is your serials. My God. I'm sorry, I mean, some of you may be following, I'm not against it. But I have gone through that experience. It's not that I'm telling. I have gone through one experience of following one Bengali serial. Oh my God, mommy! When I went to Hyderabad at that time, I used to watch that. Mom used to say, "Hey, pagal ban gaya kya tu?" Yeah, it is that pagalpana, I mean, even in Hyderabad, where my mommy didn't have any Bengali channel, I asked her to put the channel for that week, and then it shocked me. I said, "Where am I? How much slavery has become of my mind?" And then I said, "No, rub it out." So what I want to tell you is that this kind of a selfishness, but there is an answer to that. The Gita gives us. Radha Krishna. No, not Radha Krishna. Not the gopis. Arjun and Krishna. Dost, yarpana, friendship, intimacy with the divine. I mean, it is not my idea. I'm just telling you, Sri Aurobindo wrote, I don't know, you will not get it in the essays on the Gita, you'll get it on his writings in Bengali. Read that. I mean, there are fundamental truths of the Gita, and there it describes the greatest beauty of the Gita is the relation between Arjuna and Sri Krishna. That how you can befriend the divine. That's the best relation you can have. Radha Krishna. Krishna had two wives, I think. But he always stole away at night to go to Radha. Because she is a friend. You see, he's always the friend who is the best person to you. Because you don't have demands on him. You don't want to guide him or chide him. To just have, I say, I'm happy with it. So that friendship with the divine is, I suppose, the best relation that comes on the human level. Because there's no constriction, there's no fear. Basically, friendship and all other relations, there's one element that is missing is fear. If you say God, fear. You have to do pranam, you have to appease him and all that. If God is the judge, fear. God is the father, fear. God is the mother, fear. So Sri Aurobindo would say the best relation is friendship with the divine. That's why your Radha Krishna is so appealing. Not just because of the relationship of their love. And why are they so intimate in love? Yesterday you were saying, no, the other gopi. You see, Radha can chide Krishna, can scold him. And when he comes close to her, she says, get lost. You became late by 3.5 minutes. I've been waiting for you for last. You see, that equation is there. And Sri Krishna accepts her chiding, falls at her feet. There's a maafi mangro, sorry for the delay. But can a husband do that? Ahankar. But here are these friends. So that equation of friendship with as the best relation amongst human beings, that's what the Lord has shown us. In the Kurukshetra he has shown us, and in real life he has shown us. So that is where comes the question of the mental will.
How is then the relationship with the Divine Mother here? Children.
Yeah, I'll come to that. So we have that mental will, so there is only the rudiments of love there. So we are all stuck on the mental level. In fact, when I read this first time, I was so surprised. Mother says, most of the Western love is mentalized love. I don't know what it means. It's a mentalized love. You see, in India we can say it is the emotional love, but there it is the mental love. And I will not expand that, but all that we have discussed, you should be able to understand now. There is this mental love, there is a question of giving. You see, that's why the Western partners are equal. They give to each other. They don't possess. If you possess too much, then one of them packs up the suitcase and they exit door. They don't possess. So that is because on the mental life they have learned to give. Give freedom, give space, give for your growth. You may say, honey, I love you, honey, I have to talk to you. But honey may become lemon, bitter lemon, once things go wrong. So what I want to tell you is that rudiments of love turn to real love only when you become spiritual. Because in spirituality there are two things. One is you can identify with the other person. So there is this love of identification, identity. And then second thing is spiritual love alone can give without an iota of expectation of return. What is the another label for that? Impersonality. So spirituality brings in an impersonality, whereas all other levels you have the personal. So as long as you are personal, you are into this problem. So the mother and Sri Aurobindo could love because especially Sri Aurobindo is a tremendous impersonality. Do not think that he loved his sadhaks less and the mother talked about loved more, just because the mother was moving around in the ashram talking to everybody and he was hidden away right from 1926 till the end. No, not at all. His love was impersonal. So that means it is equal. Impersonal means equal to all. Although there are many stories, he says, no, you come here, you can do this. We have Kathamrita of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. But never take them as partiality. Because he comes to you in your own mold. What is required for you? And mother at a point says, because people have been saying, mother, you told him something and you told just opposite to the other person. Says, yes. I'm not a dhancha that everybody I want to fit into one mold. I see your aspiration, I see your need, and the same question I can answer in one manner, I can answer in different manner, suiting your need to grow. If I gave you the same answer, for example, I have to go abroad. To me, she said, no, don't go to America. Stay here. To somebody, she says, yes, go on. I'm with you in Germany. I'll be with you whenever you call me, I'll be with you. She blessed him and the person was just 2 years senior to me. So going abroad for education, she denied me and she gave him the permission. So I cannot go and quarrel with the mother, hey, how do you do that? So you see, she goes by your inner need. There is not one rule. That's why she doesn't want to make rules saying, if you make a rule, it will be broken. So she was really a spiritual master, identifying herself with each one of us. So that's where this question of love comes and impersonality. And so I will now, having discussed the question there, I'll take you through the last paragraphs. I mean, some of those wonderful, in his own language. You have your book, you can take out Life Divine you have? Not Savitri, it's the Life Divine only. The same chapter, Death, Desire and Capacity. Come to the 5th page or so. Starting with the para is, this then is the necessity. Now, all that I've been telling you, no, this is not your page, because if you want to, the American edition is the Life Divine, yeah. Now, I want to read out to you certain things because they will click. The language is so powerful. This then, about the 5th page from beginning. This then is the necessity and justification of death, not as a denial of life, but as a process of life. Death is necessary because eternal change of form is the sole immortality to which the finite living substance can aspire, and eternal change of experience, the sole infinity to which the finite mind involved in living body can attain. So the only eternity that we can aspire for is change. There's nothing called eternal. Change alone is eternal. That is the philosophy that we had long back in the Buddha, in Heraclitus. When they say there's no permanence, there's only flux. So here too we see everything is changing. So he would tell us that death is necessary because eternal change of form is the sole immortality. Please catch the word change of form. Because later he would say, this change of form cannot be allowed to remain merely a constant renewal of the same form type, such as constitutes our bodily life between birth and death. For unless the form type is changed and the experiencing mind is thrown into new forms in new circumstances of time, place and environment, the necessary variation of experience which the very nature of existence in time and space demands cannot be effectuated. Sure you get it? So now it is not, you see, in one life between our birth and death, we are changing. But there's no change of the form. We have become older and this, but in the same body. But Sri Aurobindo would say that is not the change that we are looking for. We're looking for the complete change of form type itself. So that the change of form means a new environment, a new time and space, a new culture, a new thing. Because that is where a new experience can be had. Otherwise, if you want to prolong your life 300 years, 400 years, you can do that. But you are in the same form, the same place, the same thing, the same type of mentality and all that. He said that does not help the evolution of the soul. So he would say change of form is required, and it is only the process of death by dissolution and by the devouring of life by life. It is only the absence of freedom, the compulsion, the struggle, the pain, the subjection to something that appears to be not self, which makes this necessary and salutary change appear terrible and undesirable to our mortal mentality. So he has given very fine description that why death is so very shocking to us, so very terrible, because of all these things of being devoured, broken up, destroyed or forced away, which is the sting of death. So death itself is fine, but that moment of partition, that moment of division, that moment of departure, that's what is shocking and terrible. But there again, although it is sometimes, people go out of this disease or accidents or old age or this or that. I mean, death comes in many ways. That moment of division, he says, broken up. In fact, he has a poem where he says, when the lady goes and plucks the flower, what must be the feeling? The flower is there on the tree, and when you hold it and snatch it away, you don't feel. You say it's fine, I'm taking it to the mother, fine. But you see the flower which is debranched or disconnected. So that disconnection, the flower must be feeling the pain. But because we are not sensitive to that, we say it's fine. So similarly, when God or death or Yama, he disconnects your body from the present circumstances, we have that kind of a pain. But he says, it is only that moment of pain. Because sometimes I've seen, the other day, one of my elderly aunts, she was 93 or so. She lived a very good life and very devoted and all that. And the way she was being in and out of her illness, we knew anytime she would go. And yet, when she did go away out of an accident, her daughters, who are now in their 70th year, mid-70s, when we rang them back and say, hey, how are you feeling? He says, really, I feel a sorrow now. You see, that's very strange. Although she was expecting that my mommy is 93 years old, anytime she'll go away. But when the incident happened, when there was really the breaking away, then that came as a shock. So mentally we are prepared. But when the event takes place, it's a shock. So Sri Aurobindo is telling us the being devoured, broken up, destroyed, or forced away, which is the sting of death, and which even the belief in personal survival of death cannot wholly abrogate. So it's very realistic. He says, I may have all the philosophy that I'm going to come back, this person will come back, and all that. But still, the pain is pain. So he is very realistic to say, yes, we do have the pain. Now, after that, there's one line that one phrase I wanted to give you is ever secretly conscious of its all embracing, all possessing infinity. I mean, that line stuck with me because, when we said this question of the individual wanting to be individual as he is or as she is. But we said right from the atomic level, there is this secret, it says, all possessing infinity, there's a secret consciousness. This is what we are discussing, that at the bottom of the most divided thing that is the atom for us, even there's a secret consciousness of an all-embracing, all-possessing infinity. And so this entire evolutionary march that we are calling is nothing but a movement back towards that oneness, towards that infinity, towards that eternity, which takes evolutionary stages that we discuss: hunger, desire, will, etc. Now, on the next page, there's one paragraph before I'll leave you there. In the conscious mind, that which was still only a vital hunger in subconscious life transforms itself into higher forms. Hunger in the vital parts becomes craving of desire in the mentalized life, straining of will in the intellectual or thinking life. This movement of desire must and ought to continue. Now, this is the sentence, please remember. This movement of desire must and ought to continue until the individual has grown sufficiently so that he can now at last become master of himself, and by increasing union with the infinite possessor of this universe. Desire is the lever by which the divine life principle effects its end of self-affirmation in the universe, and the attempt to extinguishing it in the interest of inertia is the denial of the divine life principle, a will not to be which is necessarily ignorance. For one cannot cease to be individually except by being infinitely. One cannot cease to be individually except by being infinitely. So you see, let us not try to snub the desire, because as it says, it is the divine life principle itself. But as we discussed, what kind of a desire? In our practical life, you see, when we said desire is an expression of life towards expansion, what expands your consciousness? That movement which takes you towards the divine. And all that movement that does not take you to the divine does not help your desire of expansion. It, on the contrary, makes your consciousness constricted. So he says, desire is the lever by which the divine principle affects its end. Then he would say, desire too can only cease rightly by becoming the desire of the infinite and satisfying itself with a supernal fulfillment and an infinite satisfaction in the all-possessing bliss of the infinite. Meanwhile, it has to progress from the type of mutually devouring hunger to the type of mutually giving, of an increasingly joyous sacrifice of interchange. The individual gives himself to other individuals and receives them back in exchange. The lower gives itself to the higher, and the higher to the lower, so that they may be fulfilled in each other. The human gives itself to the divine, and the divine to the human. The all in the individual gives itself to the all in the universe, and receives its realized universality as a divine recompense. So Sri Aurobindo is giving us the higher end. And so what we have seen the desire, the individual, etc., is from our end. So he says there is this movement of what we said about love and the will. This rudiment of love which begins on the mental level, if we can translate it into this greater giving. So the more we give, the more the lower is giving to the higher. One is on the social level, what we say, give your wealth, give your help, give what you can. But the real giving is the lower being given to the higher. That means our outer nature of anger, of jealousies, of this and of that. It is these that must be given up to the higher. See, what is the problem that we normally have in the social level is, when we go to a temple, when we go to a guru, when we go to an acharya, when we go to a babaji, we don't bring out the lower nature. We are always dressed up in the best, the highest. Because whenever we went to the mother, yes, we had the best of clothes, pick up a lovely bouquet of flowers. But all that is only an external arrangement of your best. But what the mother would say is, when you come to me like that, you may give me the best of the roses and the lotuses in the world. But when we sit in front of her, she says, all the worst that comes from the back of our head and says, hey, here we are. And in the face of it, I'm only looking at the mother with an ardent look, with an aspiring face, and all the beautiful painting of a lovely devoted face. But all that is there at the back. Mother is seeing all that at the back of my head. But we are not offering that. We are offering a prayer saying, let me have this and let me have that. All the so-called divine prayers, psychic being, I want transformation, I want this. But she's saying, why don't you offer that fellow all that bad things there? So what is happening in our religiosity is the bad things we keep for ourselves, the good things we give to the divine. What a foolish thing. We should have done the reverse. So you would say that the lower must be given to the higher, and the higher to the lower. So that when you offer the lower to the higher, then the higher gives itself to the lower. The divine consciousness then will give itself. Because if you have filled your cup with all the nonsense there, divine will say, what can I give you? Your good parts are 1/10 actually, and 9/10 are the bad parts. So your cup is full by 9/10. So I can fill up only 1/10. So this is this question of yoga. This is where comes in the question of surrender. This is where the question of comes in the question of aspiration. You see, we forget that we have to constantly, what's the necessity of surrender? It's just this, in simple words, to empty your cup. And there's no great big thing demanded in that. Empty your cup and give the contents of the cup to somebody called the mother, so that she may fill the cup. And to the extent you have surrendered 1/100th or 1,000th, that, in fact, mother cautions somewhere saying, you must immediately empty that portion of the cup, you must immediately fill up that portion of the cup which you have emptied. Because oftentimes what happens, I empty my cup, but I don't aspire, I don't invoke. So there's a gap between emptying and filling. And there, instead of the divine force, other forces may come in. You see the danger of yoga, that's why people go astray. They say, no, mother, I'm surrendering, I'm emptying and all that. But have you called in her force, or from the back door you called somebody else? And sure, when the writes in the mother, that's what most of us do. We have a backdoor entrance to the other forces. The divine force, we are there in front of her, but we have the back doors open for all kinds of things. We said, no, just stay on till 10:30, because till 10:30 I'll come out of the mother's room. Like the famous Ramakrishna's example. We go into the Ganges, we leave our clothes outside, we go and take a nice bath, come back, put on our clothes. That's put on our clothes is exactly the wrong things. When we go into the Ganges, we put behind not only our clothes but all the bad things. And we go there, we have a dip 3 times or 4 times or 5 times. Yesterday there was a document on Kumbh Mela. So that fellow is saying, I'm taking a dip for myself, for my wife, my son who is in America, my bahu who is in America. On behalf of everybody, he is taking a dip. I mean, that's a belief, fine. But the moment you come out, those fellows are waiting, like the dress is waiting for you, the fellows are also waiting to jump back into you. So what I want to tell you is exactly this, that the filling must be done with the divine force. That is where the alertness of yoga comes into this thing. If you are not alert, then the back door is open. So that is what is the meaning of the human gives itself to the divine and the divine to the human. The all in the individual gives you to the all, to the all. Thus the law of hunger, this is the conclusion. Thus the law of hunger must give place progressively to the law of love. There's another place I'll tell you. You see, hunger, what we saw on the physical level, that hunger which is there all the time, hunger for things, hunger for greed, hunger for whatever greed, are the different words you may use. But slowly you should give place to love. Love means to give away without any demand. So the more you give without any demand or expectation, the more is your turn spiritual. You see, that's why I was talking to you about Babaji there at Barsana. The spiritual man, I went and met him, and it is a very beautiful atmosphere, a lovely consciousness. And he was talking about some problems, issues there and all that. And as we go to a Baba and we say, Baba, I need some prasad from you. At that time he was eating, he was having his lunch. And I did not ever expect, he took out a little roti ka tukda and gave me the roti. I mean, it's quite, it was amazing for me that he shared his own roti with me and he said, okay, you want that better? Take it. And then he said, you must come back. So he gave me a prasad out of his own roti. He's not just giving a blessing, okay, tu chala ja, theek hai, and all that. That is the giving, the spontaneity of giving. You don't calculate, you don't say it's good or bad or moral, religious, nothing. So that gesture of a spontaneity of giving, no expectation, nothing. You will go there once again or not, it's in my kismat. But you know, that genuineness of giving, the act of giving, how many of us can we do that? There's always something, some expectation. So here he would say, there must be the hunger, must give place progressively to the law of love, the law of division to the law of unity, the law of death to the law of immortality. And then the last para he would say here, and this in the next chapter I found when he summarizes, you know, there is a beautiful summary. I don't know if you find on second page only, Jamshed, of the next chapter 21, where he puts in again the same thing in a different way. He says the phenomenon of hunger and desire involves a struggle towards a status of satisfaction and security, since desire is only the stimulus by which life tempts its own positive being to rise out of the negation and unfulfilled hunger toward the full possession of the delight of existence. You see, what we see as the beginning, the hunger, the desire. Now, where do they end up? They end up, as is saying, the delight of existence. You see, the delight of existence is a spiritual quality. You see, this question of wanting, desiring these objects and all that, at a point when I'm slowly turning toward the desire of the infinite, what happens experientially? Then I begin to see the divine in all things, in all human beings. So I don't desire anymore this object or this object at that house or this, because I've found that infinite within. So I've found that happiness, the source of happiness is not outside but within. So a saint or a Baba or a Maharshi or a Sadhak, they don't desire anything outside. And that's what our ancient teaching is, that happiness really lies within. So for to realize this, it takes a huge cycle for us. We go out into the world, we earn our money, we have families, we have this, and then at a later age we start coming back. But if we do that earlier, the better. So that's what he will say, that ultimately this hunger and desire, if it is interiorized, you see, even the food, at a point of time we used to enjoy some special food and non-veg and this and that. But after a while you say no. After all, this food is only for survival. So your food becomes simple, there's no demand on the food, and then it becomes minimal. So it has to be that kind of a transformation, and then you will see, yes, delight of existence. Second, he says here, the phenomenon of limited capacity involves a struggle towards expansion, mastery and possession, the possession of the self and the conquest of the environment. Since limitation and defect are only the negation by which life tempts its own positive being to seek for the perfection of which it is eternally capable. So incapacity moves towards perfection. And there is all the struggle. Because as Alok was telling you this morning, yes, everyone wants to have some kind of a expression of himself, expansion of himself. So again the question of what kind of an expansion do you want? Do you want to expand yourself at the cost of others? Harming others? So no, it is an expansion of my own innate capacities. So this kind of an expansion, you cannot expand infinitely on material level, on physical level. There is a block. So now what happens? On the material level, physical level, I have expanded to the maximum possible. But then the real expansion of consciousness begins. And that expansion of consciousness is infinite. So that is why the Mother and Sri Aurobindo say you have a simple living. You don't try to expand your physical life with these riches and with this extra paraphernalia and all that. Because all those expansion of the physical, ultimately, eating is eaten. So if you possess more of the objects, they begin to possess you. So we have dispossession, and then he says the only expansion that can be infinite is the consciousness. So materially you cannot expand. There's a limit to that. So he talks only about the expansion of consciousness through whatever means. That's the second one. So imperfection leads to perfection. And lastly, I would say the struggle. Last one is that the struggle for life is not only a struggle to survive, is also a struggle for possession and perfection. Since only by taking hold of the environment, whether more or less, whether by self-adaptation to it or by adapting it to oneself, either by accepting and conciliating it or by conquering and changing it, can survival be secured. It is this truth that Darwinism sought to express in the formula of the survival of the fittest. Yeah, he throws in one last line, but that takes us pretty much away from the main topic. So ultimately, to conclude the last line, whatever we have analyzed is the beginning. You see, it is not that there's nothing wrong in this creation, nothing mishap, nothing misplaced. Everything is perfectly arranged, but perfectly arranged as a ladder of evolution. That is the key that we are missing. We think it is already there, so I come to that level and I am comfortable, I have my bank balance, I have my children abroad, I have my house. We think there is a staticity. No. Everything, the hunger is there as a necessity, but this hunger and desire must give into the question of understand where is this desire leading me to? Away from divine or toward the divine? And outer or inner? So hunger, which is the necessity of nature, becomes something positive in my spiritual quest of this question of what we say, delight of existence. Incapacity becomes a capacity for expanding my consciousness. So all these things lead me, if I can be conscious. That is what Jamshed was talking about, the ordinary and the spiritual. There's no difference. And yet, the moment you take a decision that enough is enough, hunger for the outer no more, desire for the outer no more, incapacity no more. It is a conscious decision. That's what the mother would tell us. When do you want to take to yoga? She asked in the class, why do you want to take to yoga? Is it for power, position, name? And that's what is most of the people in Asta channel you see everywhere, this kind of thing. Everyone wants a name, and then the moment they come on the Asta channel, all the glorification, all the dancing, all that. Because these things are supposed to take you within and not without. So you would tell us that all this question of really wanting, if you want something out of yoga, she says, don't do. There are better ways of achieving power and money and name and fame and all that. So yoga is only for the sake of the divine. And that also you will do only when you are having enough. As long as you are happy with the world as it is, you cannot turn to yoga. The element of dissatisfaction is very necessary. So let's not, you see, there are hundreds of cases where you will see in the ashramites, they have come to Sri Aurobindo through some disillusionment, through some tragedy, through some problem, where the element of dissatisfaction with the outer life must come. She says, those of you who are happy with the outer life, get going. I'll wait for you. When a point comes, you say, Mother, I've had enough. Then you turn to yoga. At a point where you say, is this the end of my life? Is this the purpose of my life? That I came to ashram only for this, to seek roti kapda makan? There are a lot of people who have just sought roti kapda makan. Moment they get the prosperity number, they think they got to the seventh world. No, it's only a shelter that anybody can give. But that is the beginning. So, she would say, unless you have the question within you, ko vadis, where am I going? What for am I here? Is it only a material safety? Material safety, many companies can give you, Tata, Birlas, they give you a lot of money and safety. But are we coming to the ashram for that? So she says, take to yoga when you have this quest. That I want that higher. Whatever the name. I want that something that is missing in me. That something higher. What it means, I had no idea. But at least the very day you say, I want that higher, that day is the beginning of your yoga. Until that question comes, he says your life became normal, you be in the prosperity room or in the ashram or Ramanashram. So we can be in the normal life. So that is the difference between the ordinary and the spiritual life. Otherwise there is no difference. So the day you take a turn towards getting that higher or wanting that higher, that's where you turn towards, not to. To is still a long way up. You are not yet turned to spiritual life. You are only turned towards. Because after the towards to and to two, there's a lot of hiatus there, a lot of gap. Because you may be hijacked and you will say, oh, my grandchild is getting married, and you go to Bangalore and you stay there and you said, wow, mommy, grandfather. And you stay there for the rest of your life, because a lot of my relatives have gone to America and they say, my grandchild is there, I have to do the babysitting. And the rest of their life is gone, is their babysitting. So that's why I'm saying towards and to, there's a big gap. So when you take to spirituality, it is tapasya. Most of us are between the towards and the to only. Talk about it, walk about it, read about it. But eat about it, dining room में time होगा 11:40 and चला जाने का. It's all a goody goody life. But the two is what is the difficult thing. And that was a badge of those old ashramites. They had taken to spiritual life, not walking towards spiritual life. They meant business. And that business is getting a little, diluted, universalized, whatever you want to say. But I understand towards and to is the biggest, longest journey. That's the real testing ground. Where mother once told us that, a lot of people come to ashram and then when they see, in the beginning of the ashram coming, first few visits is all beautiful. I mean, no place on earth is better than ashram. There was a gentleman who came to Sakar also. He comes from somewhere from North Lucknow maybe. He said, I had given him one top room, I don't know if there's one single room up there. So I said, हाँ भाई कैसा लग रहा आपको? How are you feeling here? He said, sir, this is paradise for me. I said, wow, somebody is thinking of paradise. And within 2 months, he left paradise to go back to hell. That's precisely, she said that. That in the first few months or the first few weeks or whatever, you find the ashram a paradise. But the moment you start speaking to people, the hell comes out. So she said in the ashram, when you come, don't look at people, look at me alone. But that me alone, mushkil hai. We have the TV, we have the BV, we have the CV, we have the TV. And we start expanding our contacts. And the more you expand your human contacts, it's done. So the sadhana too is to look at her alone. And agar if you can do that, that's why we say, be silent, be quiet to yourself. But there's a long story. I don't know how to get into anybody's story. Yeah, friends, so this is where we have discussed from the Life Divine. Today is the last day. Let's see tomorrow what happens.